A lot of people chase exciting days. New plans, new places, new experiences, more variation, more spontaneity. And I get that. But if I'm being completely honest, I like boring days. I really do. And I think one of the reasons is this. I've always been deeply drawn to computers, technology, IT, and telecom, basically my whole life. And not just because it's interesting, but because it makes sense to me. Because that world is built on logic. Because underneath all the screens, apps, networks, and devices, it all comes down to structure, rules, patterns, cause, and effect. And at the deepest levels, it's all just ones and zeros. And that has always fascinated me. Because if something is wrong, there is usually a reason. If something keeps breaking, there is usually a flaw somewhere in the system. And if you think clearly enough, long enough, and logically enough, you can usually improve it. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not instantly, but there is usually a smarter way. I think that is one of the reasons I've always loved that world so much, because it rewards logic, it rewards structure, it rewards paying attention to what actually works. And over time I realized that I naturally started thinking about life in the same way, especially after MS became a part of my reality. Because when you live with MS, you simply cannot afford to build your life on fantasy. You have to deal with the system you actually have, and not the one you wish you had. And that changed a lot for me. So slowly, over many years, through a lot of trial and error, I started building a daily life more like a functional operating system. Not a perfect life, not a exciting life, but a functional one. A life with patterns, routines, stable inputs, less randomness, less unnecessary friction. Because here's the truth. The more variables you add, the more energy the system has to spend. More decisions, more switching, more unpredictability, and more noise. And if your energy is already limited, the price gets very real. So yes, I like the boring days. I like the days where I can follow the routines I already know help me. The days where I do not have to constantly adapt to 100 new things. The days where the system runs the way it is supposed to. Some people hear that and think it sounds rigid, maybe even a little sad, but to me it sounds intelligent. Because I'm not trying to build a life that looks impressive from the outside. I am trying to build a life that works reliably on the inside, that gives me enough stability to be a good father, a good partner, a person who still has energy left for what actually matters. And that is the real goal. And that is why boring days are so valuable to me. They are not empty, they are not lesser. They are the days where everything is calibrated. The days where the background systems hold. The days where I do not waste power on unnecessary overload. Because in technology, when you find a setup that works, you do not casually mess with it for no reason. You protect it, you refine it carefully. And if something keeps creating friction, you do not aromatize it, you troubleshoot it, you simplify it, or you remove what you can. And that is how I think about life too. Not because life is a machine, but because logic still matters. And with MS, it matters even more. So no, I do not dream about living some perfect Instagram-friendly life full of constant novelty and noise. What I want is much simpler than that. I want a life that works, a life that is sustainable, a life where the ordinary day is not something to escape from, but something strong enough to stand on. And that is why I like the boring days, because boring in my world usually means stable. And stable is a beautiful thing.